Now, it's my pleasure now to introduce today's speaker, Larry Goddard. I've known Larry for 30, 40 years. I hate to even think. Back when he was running the Waco scaffolding. And Larry has, I think, as much experience in making companies successful and dealing with companies and their struggles as anyone in Northeast Ohio. So when I discovered that he'd written a book, SOAR, to Business Success, I jumped on the opportunity to ask him to present. So it's my opportunity now to introduce Larry.
Okay. You don't need this.
I don't think I'm going to need the
You do here. You have to push the button.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ben. Do you know why private equity loves to buy middle market companies? Because middle market companies leave so much low-hanging fruit on the table. I'm sure you've all heard the stories and been involved in situations where private equity buys a company and then 5 years later sells it for 3 times what they paid for it. And that's because they take advantage of these low-hanging growth levers that most middle market companies either don't know about or not doing anything about. So today, I'm going to share with you some of these low-hanging growth levers. And none of them are rocket science. So it's very interesting. So this is a product that we call the SOAR growth engine. So there are 8 major ways a business can grow. Each of them have subcategories. So there's in total probably 30 or 40, but 8 major categories that drive business growth. And really, these are the only ways a business can grow. And the way we've set this up, the easier ones are on the left-hand side of the page, and the further you go to the right, the harder it gets. Now, as I mentioned, none of this is rocket science. It's actually, most of it is quite easy, especially the stuff on the left-hand side. It's quite easy. But most middle market companies either don't know about it or are not doing anything about it. And that's why private equity is so attracted to them. The reality is that most businesses go backwards before they go forwards. And that's due to a concept called base business loss. Every business, when they start the new year, they actually lose business. And this is due to lost customers, customers scaling back, and product obsolescence. So if you want to grow your company 10% this year, the average company, the average middle market company, loses 10% of their business through base business loss. So if you want to grow your company 10%, you actually have to grow 20% to make up for the 10% loss and the 10% gain. So the irony of it is that very, very few middle market companies measure their base business loss, and almost none of them manage it. And so the first low-hanging growth strategy is lose less business. And it may seem obvious, but almost nobody focuses on it. So when you see, a company's sales plan, how many of you ever seen point number 1 on the sales plan, lose less business? Almost never, right? By the way, this growth engine is actually, what you're seeing on the chart is actually a company that I ran. Ben mentioned when he met me, I was running this company called Waco Scaffolding. This was the growth engine of that company, and this is where I started to develop this whole growth engine concept. Now, the next element of growth in a business is a concept called base evolution. And base evolution is driven by external factors that the company doesn't really drive, which is market growth, inflation, and high growth customers. So if you are fortunate enough to be in a business where the market itself is growing, let's say your market is growing 15% a year, as long as you're as good as your competitors, your business is going to grow 15%. If you're in an environment, let's say in COVID, where there's 10% inflation, you're going to grow 10% a year, but it's not real growth, it's inflation. If you're lucky enough to have a customer that's growing tremendously, like take, for example, in the computer industry, NVIDIA is growing much faster than Intel. If you got lucky and you were a supplier to NVIDIA, you're going to grow tremendously, not because of something you did, but because you just picked the right customer. Now, maybe it took some skill to pick the right customer, but you're going to get grown. You're going to grow because of that. And this is what we call inherited growth versus earned growth. Now, there's nothing wrong with inherited growth. It's actually great, and you should try to find it wherever you can. But it's not as reliable as earned growth because you don't actually do anything strategic to accomplish inherited growth. It happens to you. Now, sometimes you have to be smart to be in the right place at the right time. And so what we tell companies, if you are lucky enough to have inherited growth, enjoy it, milk it, take advantage of it, but be prepared, it may end. Now, the next two categories of low-hanging fruit are probably the most important and the least understood. The first is a concept called win-back. The second is wallet share. Just a show of hands, are these terms that you guys have heard a lot about, you're familiar with? Most middle market companies have heard of it, but they actually do nothing about it. Less than 10%, I've consulted to over 500 companies in my life, and less than 10% of those measured or managed win-back or wallet share. So we actually had a client meeting earlier this week, and we identified at that client $20 million of win-back opportunity and $80 million of wallet share opportunity. This is a $100 million company. They had 2,000 customers that they had lost in the last 5 years, and they had never made a list of them or even contacted them. Hard to believe, right? So, win-back, there are 3 different types of win-back. There are those customers that drifted away, there are those that were chased away, and those that were enticed away. So the ones that drifted away, they just went away for whatever reason, and nobody even paid attention or noticed. And there wasn't a fight, there wasn't a big problem, they just went off. Chased away, we screwed something up. We had a quality problem, service problem, something went wrong, and we chased them away. Enticed them away is where a competitor comes in and offers them something better. Maybe a better price, maybe a better value proposition, maybe better service. Or maybe they were friends and they were able to entice them away because they played golf together. Whatever it is. The point of it is that every business should know which customers they've lost, what the reason for it is, and all 3 reasons require a different strategy. You don't apply the same strategy for somebody that was chased away than somebody that drifted away. But again, very few companies understand this or focus on it. So the next category is wallet share, and wallet share is truly the most important growth lever in every business. And again, the least understood and the least managed. And again, there are three different types of wallet share. So the first is what we call wallet share A, which is we offer the products and they buy the products from us. So we offer a certain widget, and they buy from us. So let's say, for example, they buy $100,000 a year from us, and we find out that they buy in total $500,000 a year of that product. That means we have a 20% wallet share. This is a golden opportunity to go to the customer and say, why do you only buy 20% from us? What do we have to do to grow our wallet share? Now, I know you won't believe me when I tell you that less than 10% of companies measure their wallet share or understand their wallet share. And a lot of them will tell us when we say you should do this, they say, oh, that's impossible. Customers, they're not going to tell us that. Trust me, we give them a list of like 10, 15 questions to ask. And and you don't ask them all at the same time. It may take 3 months to ask the questions, but after you've asked the 15 questions, you will know. You might not know the exact number. You might not know if it's 20% or 22%, but you'll know directionally whether you've got a lot of wallet share, a medium amount, or a little bit of wallet share, and that's going to drive your strategy. The next category is wallet share B, which is we offer the product, but they don't buy any of it from us. Now, that's also a huge opportunity, and of course, you go to the customer, and again, most companies don't know this. They go to the company, they see that they're buying all these other stuff, but they don't ask the question, why don't you buy from us? Well, often the customer will say, we didn't even know you offered it. Or, we bought it from you 10 years ago, and we didn't like it, so we switched to your competitor. Well, that's a golden opportunity to say, well, since then, we've improved our product tremendously. So wallet share B is a huge opportunity, because it doesn't take much. You're already selling the product, you've developed the product, you've done all the development work, you have the product. Wallet share C is a little bit more challenging, because those are products you don't offer, but the customer buys. So let's say you find out, you're selling them your $100,000 a year of wallet share A, but you find out that they're buying $2 million of another product you don't offer, but it's not that far from what the products you offer. And you say, could we make that product? Could we source it from somewhere else? We've got a trusted relationship with these people. Would they give us a crack at it? That's a great conversation to have with the customer. So, cannot stress to you how important the wallet share is. Now, give you an example. This company we were at this week, their wallet share A potential was actually very small. They only had maybe $5 million of wallet share A potential because they had almost 100% wallet share A with their major customers, which is a great thing. You know, wallet share A, a high wallet share A is good news and bad news. The customer loves you, you totally dominate them, but there's no room to grow in that product. But then they looked at wallet share B, and there was a huge amount of wallet share B. This company offered a whole range of products that most of their customers, they had like two product categories. Most customers bought one or the other, but they both needed both. But somehow they'd never gone to them and said, I mean, I know this sounds ridiculous for a $100 million company, but they'd never done that. And then wallet share C was even bigger. They identified probably $100 million of potential of sales that they could, products they might be able to make or source. So then as we move to the right-hand side of the growth engine, things get a little bit harder. So the next category is called market share. And market share is really another name for getting new customers in existing markets. Now, this is actually the go-to for almost every company. If you say to every company, what's your sales plan? Almost every company will say, go get more customers. Go whip the sales team to knock on more doors and get more customers. But the reality is that getting new customers is not easy. It's important, but not easy. But that's where every company focuses. And The stuff to the left of this, the wallet share, the win back, is so much easier and so much more important. So again, if you're having most sales plans, the first item on the sales plan is get more business. That's not always the best thing to do. Moving one to the right is new products. Obviously, businesses can grow by developing new products, but we know that new products is not easy. It's costly, and there's risks associated with new products. What will the market acceptance be? How much is it going to cost to develop the products? How long will it take? So again, higher on the degree of difficulty. Moving even further right is the concept of stretching. Stretching yourself into new market segments, new geographies, and new channels. So let's say you're a company that's done really well in the healthcare space. You've made, let's say, plastic products for healthcare, and you say, we could probably do this for aerospace. Why don't we get into the aerospace industry? Well, everybody knows that things are very different in the aerospace industry. They're similar, they're both plastic, but the requirements and the testing and all that sort of stuff, you're putting your stuff on a plane, is different than an MRI machine. So, but it's a great opportunity. New geography. If your business is in Northeast Ohio, you could think about expanding to Columbus or Pittsburgh or Toledo or Detroit or Canada or the West Coast or Europe. Those are all options, but it's not easy. The minute you start expanding the geography of your business, things get a lot harder. And then the next one is channels. We have a meeting this afternoon with a company that wants to expand their channels. They're a B2B business, and they said, we'd like to start selling through big box retailers. We'd like to sell through Amazon. How do we do that? Is it a good idea? Sure, it's a good idea, but it's not easy. And there's a lot of different things you'd have to do in your business and skills that you're going to have to learn. And then the last in that grouping is a concept called non-organic growth, which is very valuable. Everybody knows, when you think of non-organic, the first thing people think of is acquisitions. And acquisitions is one of my favorite growth strategies. I've used acquisitions in probably 50 of my clients. I've done an acquisition as a growth strategy. Also use it as a turnaround strategy, by the way. It's a very effective turn for those. I know we have several turnaround people in the room. It's a very effective turnaround strategy. But there are other non-organic growth strategies that actually are more effective and less costly, and that is joint ventures, alliances, licensing, franchising. And my favorite is a concept which I call strategic hires. Instead of buying a company, assuming they don't have non-competes, lure away some of their top people, and maybe you pick up a third of the business for a tenth of the price. Now, most companies will say, well, I'll have to pay that person a lot of money to do that. Well, it's still a lot less than it would take to buy the company. So it could be a great strategy. So, moving on, almost every company sets up their sales infrastructure incorrectly. Except banks, by the way. Banks do this quite well. The first is a concept called hunters and farmers. I'm sure you guys have all heard this term, but in reality, there are very different kinds of salespeople. And we've done extensive research, and we have found that if you're lucky, if you have 5 salespeople, you will be lucky if one of them is a hunter. 1 out of 5. And what is a hunter? A hunter is somebody who is comfortable and thrives on rejection. Rejection doesn't faze them. Okay, when a hunter hears no, the hunter believes he heard not now. When a farmer hears no, their reaction is, I'm terribly sorry to disturb you. I will never call you again. So if a company is relying on farmers to grow their sales, they're going to be bitterly disappointed. Now, occasionally, a farmer will get lucky. But consistently, if you want to grow sales, you have to have hunters. Now, again, there are different kinds of hunters. The first is a wallet share hunter. If you want to grow your wallet share with a customer, the average farmer is not going to do it. You need somebody that's willing to get to know a lot of people in the customer. Ask, can I meet your counterparts? Can I meet somebody that runs a different product line? It takes a different skill set to grow business within existing customers. It's not as hard as pure hunting, but it's harder than farming, and usually a straight farmer will not be able to grow wallet share. The next category is what we call everyday hunters. Those are the people who work for companies like Xerox that knock on 50 doors a day, and they know they're going to get probably 30 rejections, 35 rejections, and they don't care. They just keep moving. And they're just motivated by, I landed 5 orders today. Called on 50 people, I got 5 orders, had a great day. That's a different type of person, very important, very valuable. But then there's a type of hunter called big game hunters. Those are people that you want to send in to land that $1 million order. That's going to take a year or 18 months of hard work. The psychology of big game hunting is completely different than the psychology of everyday hunting, and totally different than wallet share hunting. Now, middle market companies don't always have the luxury of having all those kind of hunters, so sometimes people have to do double duty. But what's important for management is to understand, what are we trying to accomplish, and who do we have in our team that's best suited to do the job, and do we need to go out and find the right people? The next important category is the difference between the Air Force and the Army in business. I bet you guys didn't know that. So the Air Force in business is basically marketing and brand development. So if you think about it, in a military campaign, what does the Air Force do? They make it easier for the Army to succeed, right? A little bit of bombing here and there. By the time the Army gets there, the enemy's not as strong as they were. Well, in business, the Air Force makes it easier when the salesperson knocks on the door. The customer says, I've heard of you. I don't know where, but I've heard some good things about you. Come on in. As opposed to, never heard of you, slam. So the Air Force is very, very important in business. Now again, we've consulted to 500 middle market companies. You know how many middle market companies have a real marketing department that does anything more than make brochures or websites? Almost none. And it's one of the most important things you can do to grow your business. Understanding who the customer, doing data analytics, market analysis, intelligence, but then branding, building the brand, promoting the brand in whatever form, digital marketing, lead generation, email, newsletters. Almost none of our clients have a newsletter. Like, you've got 3,000 clients, and you've got 2,000 people you chased away, and you've got 4,000 prospects. The easiest thing you could do is send them a monthly newsletter telling them what your company's doing. And, it costs almost nothing because it's going out by email. And there's so much sophisticated artificial intelligence. We send out a newsletter every week to thousands of people using sophisticated AI tools that are so powerful. We know everybody who's reading our newsletters, what they're reading, what they're responding to. The data is incredibly valuable. And then you get to the next concept, which is a compelling value proposition. So many companies, when you say to them, what's your value proposition? And they'll say, we have good people, or we give good service. Well, are you really truly different from your competition? Doesn't everybody think they have good people? Doesn't everybody think they have good service? What's truly unique about your business? And what you have to do is when that salesperson knocks on the door, you've all heard about the elevator pitch. You know, when you phone up a prospect and the prospect sits at the phone and says, I'm rushing off to a meeting, you've got 10 seconds to tell me why I should talk to you. You've got to be able to arm your sales team with a compelling elevator pitch that the customer says, wow, that sounds interesting. I'd like to hear more. But again, almost no middle market companies spend time on truly developing their value proposition, other than a couple of feel-good slogans on their website. You know, we care about you and we're a great company and all that sort of stuff. So, and then in reality, what a company needs is a value proposition matrix. Because every prospect values different things. So what we train companies to do is come up with 15 or 20 things that are different about your company. And then when you meet with a prospect, by asking probing questions, you find out what's important to them, and then you pick 2 or 3 or 4 of your list from your value proposition matrix, and you focus on those, but you focus on the ones they told you were important. So you don't talk about the things that are not important to them. You talk about so value proposition needs to be a very complex matrix, and you have to train salespeople to deliver it, the right value proposition, to the right people.
My name is Wyndham Ratchford. I'm the owner of Creative Gold Media, a video production company here in Northeast Ohio. We help small and large clients tell powerful stories through video content. Having worked with organizations in diverse industries, we know there are numerous opportunities to utilize video for growth and branding. Our team has key insight that I'm confident will help reach target audiences you are trying to connect with. Are you open to chatting about some ways we can help with video? If so, please email a convenient time to chat, and I will follow up with you. I appreciate you and your time.
So you know most middle market companies have one P&L. You say, let me see your P&L. And it's one column. But then when you dig into the business, you find out that there's lots of pieces and parts to the business. In fact, every business has probably 50 or 100 sub-businesses. There's different product lines, different regions, different segments. And they don't know the profitability broken down by these little subparts. And this is a concept which we refer to as winners and losers. In every business, there are winners, there are mediums, and there are losers. And it all aggregates up into kind of the one column P&L. Well, if you can break it out, and you start focusing on the losers, and you start focusing on how do I make these losers better, you're going to grow significantly by losing less. But you got to understand where you're losing. So take an example of a company that sells to 2 customers, customer A and customer B. They sell them, both buy $10 million a year. They buy the exact same products at the exact same price. But then imagine that customer A orders in lot sizes of 100,000, and customer B orders in lot sizes of 5,000. And imagine customer A gives you 60 days lead time for the orders, and customer B gives you 15 days. And customer A almost never returns products, and B is always returning products. And A doesn't make warranty claims, and B makes a lot of warranty claims. And A pays their bills on time, and B doesn't pay their bills on time. Now, when you go and look at the company's P&L or their gross profit analysis, they're going to show the exact same gross profit for A and B. But in reality, the true profit from those customers is completely different. And that is due to a concept called cost to serve. Now, there are over 30 different types of cost to serve. And again, not bashing on middle market companies, but most of them have never thought about this concept and don't do any analysis and don't understand it. So what ends up happening is they actually pay salespeople commission to sell to the high cost to serve customers. When in actual fact, we've done a study of this, in almost every company, after taking into account cost to serve, the bottom 50% of customers lose money. And we've researched this intensively. But again, almost no companies know this, and nowhere on the financial statements will you see this. So in reality, I'm a CPA by training. I'm a recovering CPA. I can tell you that GAAP accounting, any other CPAs in the room? GAAP accounting is the worst thing for businesses. Okay? They give you the wrong information. They're great for the IRS. They're great for the bank. Although the banks would want to know this other information because it'll make you a better banker if you understand the stuff I'm talking about. So, the whole concept of we refer to this as true profitability, understanding the true profitability of all the pieces and parts of the business. And once you understand this, the upside is enormous. And now we move on to really an intangible growth lever. Could be the most important. And that's this concept called buy-in. So think about it. Imagine if you have a company, company A versus company B. Hate to bash on company B, they're not a great company. Company A, the people love the company. They respect the leadership. They understand the direction of the company. They feel totally committed to the company. Company B, the people are just coming to get a paycheck. They don't trust the people. They don't like them. They don't feel respected. They don't feel empowered. They don't feel engaged. And they're not willing to go the extra mile. They're the kind of people that when they walk along and out of the corner of their eye, they see a machine not functioning properly, they'll just keep walking. Whereas at company A, that person's going to ring alarm alarm bells, call over a supervisor, call the maintenance guy, say, there's a problem. My company is not performing well here. We're going to disappoint our customers. So this whole concept of buy-in, again, I cannot stress how important it is. It is the secret sauce of business success. When I go into a company, if they say to me, give me one thing to fix in my company, I'll say generate buy-in. And you know the irony of it is? It costs almost nothing to generate buy-in. There's no investment, but it takes a commitment and it takes a consistency. I was once at a company that had terrible buy-in. It was actually a union company. And I walked in one morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I noticed that all the workers had to park in a parking lot kind of like 200 yards away. This was in the middle of winter. And then when I walked into the office, there was like 10 reserved parking spaces that were empty. And I went to the CEO and I said to him, I can give you one thing that will change your whole company. He said, what's that? I said, get rid of the reserved parking spaces and tell people those spaces are for the people who get there first. And if you get here at 9 o'clock, you park in that back lot. And you will see a change in your company overnight. And I'm not kidding you. They did it, and the change was enormous. I then went to the union and said, you notice what happened? Now I need you to work with me because I got the executives to show you that you're important and you get to park outside the front door. So now there's a few changes I'd like to make in the operations. Would you be willing to do that? And they said, absolutely, we're open. And from there, we did a miraculous turnaround. This company went from losing a fortune simply, I'm not kidding you, it all started with that whole buy-in concept. And most companies, we have the saying that most companies make the mistake of treating employees like a pair of hands. Just come to work, use your hands, do your job. But if you allow your employees, your team members, we actually prefer to call them team members, you allow your team members to use their brains along with their hands, they will throw in their hearts and souls as a bonus for absolutely no cost to you. And that's one of the keys of buy-in, is let people think. Don't just say, do what I told you to do. What do you think? Have you got a way to improve this job? I'm open to suggestions. That's let them use their brains along with their heart, along with their hands. So, Ben mentioned at the beginning that we've written a book called SOAR to Business Success. This is actually really part of a product which we've developed called SOAR Growth, where we've taken all of our 40 years of knowledge, consulting knowledge, having consulted to 500 companies, and we've packaged it into a digital platform that companies can substantially do it themselves to access all this knowledge, that some of which I've been talking about now, and it's all driven by the SOAR growth engine. And as you can see, SOAR is an acronym, and the S stands for sales and margins, the O is organization and culture, the A is accounting, finance, and technology, and the R is responsiveness and execution. And what we believe is the true secret to business growth and business success is a balanced, holistic path. If a company wants to succeed, and there are 4 pillars of growth, and there's 12 modules. Each pillar has 3 subcategories, so there's 12 modules. We believe, and we have proven with all of our clients, that if you want to be a great company, you have to do well in all 12. So, and our product literally helps people identify their growth levers in less than 10 hours using sophisticated software, brainstorming. It's a highly effective process. This is something that as a consultants used to take us 3 months to do. We can now do in 10 hours using the software. And we developed the software so that companies could do it themselves. And we're available to help and coach, but it's substantially a do-it-yourself product. So I hope that I've been able to communicate to you that there are so many great things middle market companies could be doing and should be doing to enhance their businesses. And it is a great pity, I think, that they sell to private equity, leaving so much money on the table. Also, it's a great pity that there's many of them that are, making a modest amount of profit, and they don't know, maybe they're not going to sell, but they don't know that they could be making a huge amount of profit. So we are dedicated to helping companies understand their potential and tap into their potential. And that's really what makes us tick as coaches and consultants. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to address any questions if you have.
I'm Ben Calkins. I founded Calkins Law Firm 10 years ago, but the idea of launching a business law boutique occurred to me decades earlier when one of my very first clients told me that I was the only attorney he had ever met who had done what he said, when he said, and for how much he said. When I heard that, I told myself that one day I would launch a law firm that would do what it said, when it said, and for how much it said, always. Why hire Calkins Law Firm? Quite simply, we offer highly educated, top-rated attorneys with vast expertise and deep experience on a cost-effective and responsive basis. Our secret sauce is that we truly serve and endeavor to delight all of our clients. Our commitment to our clients includes empathy, expertise, experience, and enthusiasm, along with unparalleled ethics. Calkins Law Firm, client-focused and results-driven.
Hunters and farmers. Why bother having farmers? They're very important.
In what way?
To manage the day-to-day business.
Okay.
They're vital. In fact, the hunter and farmer should work as a team. And that's why I say banks are the only, I don't know what you do, but most times when you get a bank loan, the person who sells you the loan is not the person who manages the loan. Am I right about that? I don't know about like at your bank, but at most banks, that's the way it works. The hunter at banks don't manage loans generally. But they stay in touch, and they're looking for wallet share opportunities. What else can I sell you? Cash management services or other things. That's a good question. Anybody else?
Yeah, I find it's very, very good. I mean, I'm glad you analyze a lot of marketing, business, and people building businesses and not get involved with a lot of them. But I always say high tech versus high touch. And I know you touched on a lot, you brought a lot of, there's a human piece here, and I think you're extremely right. A lot of companies just don't, they don't emphasize nor get engaged in getting their people engaged in the high touch. Example is, I gave a presentation and I explained to the service industry, 1,500 people, that if they want to increase their business, they can do one thing right now, it costs them nothing. And they all looked at me and I said, just return phone calls. Now, think about it. How many of us in this room, you want remodeling done, you want someone to fix a furnace, a heater, my wife wanted to remodel the kitchen. Okay, you know, $20-some thousand job, right? I call 5 companies. I can't get a return phone call. Then I train remodelers, and they're bitching to me how they don't have any, they can't grow their business. So could you touch on the high tech versus high touch and how we're so technology driven that I think a lot of, not us, but I think a lot of companies have relied too much on technology, and I think it hurts them. So has your research showed that aspect?
Absolutely, and that's why we talk about this balanced, holistic approach. It's so vital to have it all. You need the technology. Believe me, in today's world, technology is vital to be efficient, and also to have the data analytics that give you these under-the-hood insights. But at the same time, I also mentioned the importance of value proposition. What you're talking about is, people who don't return calls. That's a critical part of the value proposition. It's not, like if in your elevator pitch, if somebody says, well, why should I go with your company? And you say, well, we return calls. The guy would probably just slam the phone down, but because it's not compelling. But in reality, it is compelling when the other people don't return calls. But, that's the whole concept. But in order to have that touch, that's where the whole buy-in comes. You can't mandate to your employees to be responsive to customers. They have to want to be responsive. So that's where buy-in comes. If you generate buy-in, people will, and also you create a culture of responsiveness. And you know how you get people to return calls? You return calls. It starts at the top. If you want your employees to be accountable, but you're not accountable, if you tell your team, I will do this by next Tuesday, and next Tuesday comes and nothing happens, they're going to say, this guy doesn't mean what he says. Why should I do it? If you come to a meeting 10 minutes late and you haven't prepared, what message does that send to people? So this is all part of the touch stuff, that is vital. And this is where leadership comes in. I didn't talk about leadership, but leadership is also another key to growth. And that parking lot story was a little bit about leadership. It's like, I don't get the best parking spot because I'm, in theory, the leader, the owner of the company, the CEO. You've got to be a servant leader and show people that you're there. Your job, you're there to remove obstacles to their success. A leader has two jobs. One is set the direction, and two, remove obstacles to success, and then be a coach and a cheerleader. Three jobs. And that sets the whole tone for this touch part that you're talking about. And so if you want people to return calls and be responsive, the whole management team has to be responsive, and then tell people this is important. We want to be responsive to customers. This is our differentiator. This is our culture. These are our values. And those culture and values are part of buy-in and are critical to success.
Can I challenge you on one thing you mentioned?
Sure.
Okay. And I don't know.
Turn off the camera, please.
I don't know the answer to this. You mentioned in there you send a newsletter out once a week.
Yeah.
Okay. My challenge on that, and I don't know what the audience here believes, and maybe you've had success with it, but my challenge to you is I think that's too often, too much. I don't want to get a newsletter from 20 customers every week. I don't have time to read 20 newsletters. So we used to send them out more often, and we eliminated that because of the feedback was it's too much. And we went to once a month, and we know from tracking, they read the newsletter, they respond. But when we overload them once a week, we found that it got thrown away and didn't get read. Now, maybe you do it differently, but I debate it. That's my challenge.
It's an excellent point, and there are different newsletters for different people. That is a newsletter for what we call warm prospects. These are people that have clicked on an email that we've sent them, indicating that they have some interest in us. In our situation, we're in this digital platform is a new company. It's only been in existence for 2 months, and it's an unknown brand really selling an unknown product. So part of what this whole process is the Air Force, building the brand and building the awareness about the product. And so the point of the 1 week thing is it's educational. We're not selling them anything. We're giving them information, valuable information. There's no sales pitch in this newsletter. Actually the newsletter gives them the stuff we shared with you today for free. And most people respond and saying, thank you, this was incredibly valuable information. Now, you know how we know what their response is? There's things they can click on in the email, and we're getting like a 20, what kind of percent click rate? Like a 30, 40% click rate, but also the unsubscribe rate is under 0.5%. So that's how you measure their response. If we suddenly started noticing the unsubscribe rate go up to 1 or 2%, we would back it off. So we're monitoring all the dials, and Jennifer, my wife, does this on a regular. She's literally monitoring it all day, every day, to monitor it. But it's all part of brand building. So when a salesperson actually calls, we're not going to have salespeople actually call this company until they've received 15 newsletters. On the 15th newsletter, they're going to get a phone call. Because we believe then the Air Force has done its job, and now it's time for the Army to come in.
So those are mostly prospects?
They're all prospects.
Oh, they're all prospects. Okay, I'm talking about
The customers only get a monthly newsletter.
Yeah, thank you. That clarifies.
One, I think you've done an amazing job kind of capturing your life's work, in a sense, in this book, and you certainly take a very professorial approach to presenting it.
I'd like to think I'm practical, too.
You mentioned that you've kind of created this product potentially for customers to self-implement.
Right.
And I think, at least my thought was, well, they're missing out on hearing it from you. That so often when we're talking to a customer, they think they're the smartest person in the room and they don't really need help. And I think I would worry for you that, oh yeah, we tried that SOAR thing and it didn't work. But they missed out on hearing from you really the story and what the value is, rather than just trying it on their own. It's, oh, I plugged some numbers in, and it's like, yeah.
I should hire you as a, are you in the consulting business? I should hire you.
I'm just wondering, are you really just making it available to people, or how are you selling this?
Well, firstly, that's part of the reason we wrote the book. So the book is a companion. Everything I've said to you today is in the book. Okay? Now, most people don't take the time to read a book, but then in the product, every step of the way, there is a voiceover that explains everything I've said is there. So they can listen to me, and then on every page and every step of the way, there's a little button in the product that says, talk to your growth coach. So if they get stuck or they got a question, they can talk to their growth coach through a Zoom call. But the whole thing about it is, Tom, that you know as well as I do, that if they want to hire me, it's a $30,000 to $50,000 engagement. Right. If they use my product, it's a $3,000 to $5,000 engagement. So it's a different. What this is, I talked to you about stretching, delivering products through a different channel. This is stretching. We are saying there's more ways to deliver a consulting product. And guess what? I don't know how many clients you can manage at a time, but using this way, we can manage hundreds of clients at the same time.
So you're franchising?
Maybe. You want to buy a franchise?
You can see where they're at in the product.
Oh yeah, and we actually are monitoring their progress every step of the way, and including implementation. So we have a comprehensive implementation tool that every step of the way is documented, and so we can contact them and say, oh, you missed a step, or you're doing it wrong, or you need any help.
I love the idea of multiple P&Ls, particularly on your customers. And I was curious though, in one of the steps in once you understand the P&L of each customer, do you help advise people to fire their customers when there's a negative P&L? Because I've seen organizations, large ones and small ones, go after these big giant customers, but it costs them more money to sell to them than they probably make at the end of the day. So the P&L is always negative.
Well, that's a fantastic question. When do you fire a customer? It starts with actually way earlier, this concept called ICP, which is Ideal Customer Profile. So again, how many companies really have a clear ideal customer profile? And then you ask yourself, what % of our current customers are ideal customers? And again, you're going to find a very small percentage. So a big strategy for companies should be, let's steer towards selling ideal products to ideal customers. We call that the sweet spot. And in most businesses, that's less than 10%. But if you find out that after doing a cost to serve analysis or a true profitability analysis, that that customer is either low margin or no margin, it's actually a very easy situation. Because you know what happens when you go to your sales team and they think they're making 25% margin on that customer, and you say to them, we don't like that customer. And they're going to say, what are you talking about? It's a great customer. And you say, aha, but take a look at this analysis. They're actually negative margin. The salesperson shuts up immediately. You know, okay, what do you need me to do? I need you to go back and start talking to them about increasing their average order size. You know, for those people in the room who are involved with production, average order size is one of the most critical determinants of profitability. Why? It takes the same amount to set up for a small order as it does for a big order. There's a huge cost to small orders. So the first thing you can do is say, increase your order size. Give me more lead time. That gives me more time to plan my production. Do less returns. Pay your bills on time. Do all these things. So the salesperson can go back. So before we fire the customer, we try to remediate the customer. And eventually, if you can't remediate, you may have to fire. Now, there are some customers you may keep for strategic reasons. And it's okay to make a stupid decision if there's a strategic reason that is important. It's not okay if you don't know you're doing it. In other words, it's okay to lose money on a product or a customer if you know you're losing money and you're okay with it for a strategic reason. But it's not okay if you don't know you're losing money. So it's a complicated discussion, and in the end, you will lose customers. I just had this conversation with a client the other day. They have clients that don't make money on, but they're also out of capacity. And the guy said to me, should I build a new building? Should I go? I said, no, don't. Focus on your ideal customers and actually keep your business where it is and double your profit. And that's what we're doing there.
Why are companies so hesitant to increase prices in that situation? I mean, that's easier than doing more business, right? I mean, increasing, like why? What do you see?
Because you know what it comes down to? It goes to the issue of the value proposition. They don't have confidence in their value proposition. If you, and by the way, you can't raise prices if your product's the same as the next guy and his price is lower. So you have to be able to differentiate and explain why you should do business with me at a higher price. Now, if the customer's losing money and you know it's a loser, that's an easy decision. Then what you do is you raise prices and you just see what happens. And if the customer pays the higher price, great, now we've made them profitable. And if they go away, also great, because now we're making more money because we're not losing money. But it all goes to training the salespeople. And Jennifer is a master at this. A lot of times, she functions as an interim sales manager with a lot of our clients. And a lot of times the salespeople will come to her and say, I want to lower the price. And she'll say, no, let's talk about the value we deliver. And let's raise the price. You know, they want to lower the price as a way to get business. I don't think Jennifer's ever, there's only one time that Jennifer lowers the price.
I don't know where you're going with this. So.
Okay. I remember you told me a story about a customer that had a wallet share B opportunity. And the guy was buying $100,000 and he wanted a lower price. And Jennifer said to him, I'll give you a lower price on those products. If you buy, he was buying 100,000 of A, if you buy 200,000 of B, I'll give you a 10% discount on A. And he said, done. Now, overall, then she raised prices on the B, and she made it back. Anything to add to that?
I wasn't sure where you were going at first, but yeah, that's my favorite strategy. And most salespeople, I think, really struggle with this idea of talking to the customer and understanding. I'm sort of
Stand up.
Yeah. and understanding their business. A lot of salespeople get very shy about talking to customers and asking questions, but asking them in the right way at the right time. So earlier in my career, I would encourage salespeople to ask questions, and I didn't qualify for them. When do you ask this question? At what point in your relationship? And and understanding and reading the room before you ask these questions. But a lot of salespeople have really great relationships with their customers, and if they just ask the questions in the right way, all of a sudden there's a new strategic path to growth, and they've just never offered that idea to the customer. So in the situation that Larry's talking about, it actually started with me saying to each of the salespeople, I was the interim chief of sales and marketing, and I had 15 salespeople, and I said, take me to every one of each person, find one customer who is the most mad and the most irritated with our company. And that is the customer that I want to go visit. And so for all 15 customers, we did that. And then based on what their situation was, what their concerns were, then we developed a strategy for each customer to either significantly grow the business, raise prices, or do another strategy. And at the end of the day, all 15 customers turned into some of our best customers, but they started out the most angry and the most upset. And so, and you can imagine then what that did for buy-in for me in terms of being the sales leader is if I've solved the problem for every single one of the sales team, and they were put in a position now where they originally dreaded seeing that customer, and now they were thrilled to see that customer because they had this awesome relationship, all of a sudden it made them think differently, number one, about how they were going to manage their business, and number two, they didn't think maybe that I was quite the idiot that they thought they were going to get when all of a sudden they got the message, hey, this person's going to come in and help manage you. So that's the biggest strategy that I do, that when Larry talks about buy-in, is to help team members understand how I'm going to support them as a leader, and how then that I've got their back in terms of what their strategies are, and somebody's there to listen. One of the things that Larry talked about or touched on was communication. And the biggest thing that we communicate to people that we coach and work with as consultants is, by definition, communication is less about telling your employees stuff and more about listening to what they want to tell you. And I think that when we share that, people, if they take a minute to think about that, everybody thinks communication is sending out communications all the time to everybody about everything. That's not what we're saying. We're saying listen to what people are saying and develop a strategy. So hopefully that's
So I hope we answered your question. So kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but raising prices is appropriate at certain times, but you can't just, but if it's not together with a value proposition, a clear demonstration of value proposition, or you want to chase or you're open to chasing the customer away, it's probably not the best idea.
Consultative sales, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, do we have another question? Go ahead.
So, really enjoyed the presentation, Larry. Just kind of curious about some of the companies that probably gain the most from your guidance are probably the ones that are most resistant to it. So, what's your approach in terms of developing that relationship? I see the software is a nice eye-opening that they can go through on their own, and then that might be a good way to get in. And then, are you seeing struggles with implementation? Do you feel like a lot of those clients are going to become, more of your consulting clients to help with that implementation, or how's that going for you?
Well, firstly, we actually have a free sort of product on our website that a client can try. That SOAR card that I showed up here They can do this for free. It takes 10 minutes to do. So you could refer, if you have clients that you think have got potential, and if anybody comes out with a score, this is a real company, scored 54%, and you notice a lot of red boxes. We had a client, this was a prospect, they did this, and we since have helped them tremendously, and all those reds have turned to yellows or greens. And so, but the problem with, the problem with a lot of companies is really, many companies are what we call lifestyle companies. So you have a company that's doing $20 million a year and making $1 million, and oftentimes I'll go to them and say, I could show you how to make 3 or 4 million, and they say, that's too much work. Like, I'm fine, But if they wanted to sell their company, they're going to be leaving so much money on the table. But also, they don't have the money to invest in the future. And if they want to pass the business on to their children at some point in time, they're just, it's really, I would say, criminal to leave that much money on the table. But not everybody can be convinced. So we don't want clients that we have to convince them to stop leaving money on the table. Like, they have to want to do that. Now, we are happy to show them where it is, but we're not going to push them up a hill. I don't want to push a noodle up the hill. And unfortunately, a very high percentage of middle market companies are not interested in getting better. So I don't know if that answers your question, but this is a great way to open their eyes. And this is 10 minutes, and there's virtually nobody who gets a scorecard like that that doesn't think, I need to. Yeah, that's like going to your doctor and finding out your cholesterol is 400 and saying, I'm okay. I'm not doing anything about it, Did you have a question?
I did, yes, thank you. So I was curious about the value proposition matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Basically what we do is we say, okay, let's come up with a list of every possible thing that's good about our company. And most companies you can come up with 15 or 20. And then we say on the other side of the matrix, okay, let's categorize our customers. So we've got distributors. Some of our customers are distributors. Some of our customers are OEM. Some of our customers are B2C. Which ones do we think of these are going to probably resonate with distributors? Which ones are going to resonate with B2B? Which ones are going to resonate with B2C? That's just a guess. And then we train the salespeople, say, you're only going to be able to talk about 3 or 4 of these. So which ones, how do you know which ones to talk about? Well, so we have this saying. This is important. Write this down. You don't start selling until the prospect stops telling. Okay? So you don't start selling, when you go on a sales call, you don't do one bit of selling, you ask questions. And the only time you start selling is when the customer stops answering your questions. And they will give you the answer to the test. They will tell you what aspect of the matrix to focus on. Most times. Now, if it's a purchasing agent, it's different. Most purchasing agents are, no, you tell me what's good about your product. I'm not telling you anything. They're all grumpy people. They're like workout bankers. But the average, prospect will give you the information, and eventually, you don't even have to sell them. They will tell you. Eventually, you just say, yeah, we can give you everything you need. That's the sales pitch. All right.
Okay. Well, let's have a round of applause. That's a great wealth of information, and I think an awful lot to unpack for everybody. But if you can do it, I'm sure you can soar. And hopefully Larry will stay around, Larry and Jennifer, for a few minutes to answer your questions. And I hope to see all of you on the 3rd Friday in January. And happy holidays.